So, what am I going to ramble about today? Well, previously I was talking about uh, dating in regards to women attracting the type of man they want, from my experience with a lot of my students I've talked to over the years. But from the male perspective, from the male students who are, in their 20s, they often ask me, Sean, how can I find a girlfriend? Living in Asia, you get a lot of shy guys, actually. That's been my experience. And yes, I'm generalizing. I get it, but I'm generalizing because that has been my general experience talking to a lot of young boys here. Um, and here's a couple of things I've noticed. The first is that for the young guys, one thing you have to know is that I don't know if it's just girls. I think it's maybe every person. But people like gaps. Let me give you an example. People always ask me, why do I like Japan so much? It's the gap. You have a society that is very organized, clean, they take responsibility. It comes across as a bit serious sometimes. But on the other hand, have you seen their cartoons? Have you seen their advertisements? They go off the deep end sometimes. And I love it. That gap. I had this conversation in class before where we were talking about attraction. And I said to the girls, I said, tell me if I'm right or wrong. You like this. There's this bad boy, he too cool for school type person. Oh God, I'm dating myself there. But he has that attitude, kind of a bad boy attitude, kind of cool to everyone. But you see him bend down and say, ah, to a little cat, and he pets the cat. All the girls in my class, ah. That's why all these boy groups that you saw in the 90s and 2000s, they had the bad boy with a soft heart. They had that character because it's the gap. People like the gap. There is something attractive, something appealing about the gap. So I think as a guy, you have to identify what's your gap, what's that division, and then maybe find a way to highlight that gap, I think is a good thing. And I think the other thing is pretty simple. I mean, just, you know, don't raise someone else on a pedestal. I've met a lot of young boys who they kind of chase a girl. And I say, dude, chill out. Here's the thing is, at the end of the day, by aggressively chasing someone, number one, you're probably not going to succeed. You're going to turn them off anyway because you're bothering them. I know there's this whole trope in TV shows and whatnot and dramas about you just keep trying and you'll eventually get them. Well, it's a trope. It doesn't generally happen. Instead, it usually creeps people out. I think if someone is not into you, the best thing to do is say, "Oh, cool," and move on. Don't put people on a pedestal. Because once you put people on a pedestal, I think that you lower your value subconsciously in their eyes. People don't, I don't think people want to date someone who has raised them up to this high pedestal. Because if you've raised that person up, that means you have maybe a lower value. And do you want a partner that on a subconscious level you feel has a lower value than you? Because then, from the primal nature, from the animalistic nature of humans, will that person be able to provide for offspring, for example? So I do think there's something animalistic and primal about all of this, and it's not helpful to raise people on a pedestal. So the best thing is just to treat people as equals. They're not on a pedestal. Just say, this person's interesting. I'll ask them out. No? No. Yes? Good. Wonderful. And I think if you have that attitude, that intrinsically makes you more desirable because I think it's a reflection of you knowing your own value. So, to summarize, find your gap and realize that what you bring to the table is equal to what the other person brings to the table. Don't raise the other person on a pedestal. And if you can achieve that mentality, I think you'll automatically be more attractive. So I think that's the advice I often give the young men in my class who ask me this question, and it's come up quite a lot over the years. Um, and I don't know why me. I mean, I'm the balding, bearded, heavy-set guy, um, but it has come up a lot. And yeah, I think that's the best advice I can give. But that's my ramble for today, and talk to you guys tomorrow.